Hi folks, welcome to Black Sail Studio. Today we're going to be looking at how to paint the Sector Imperialis terrain. So today we're looking at how to paint the Sector Imperialis terrain really quickly, really easily, and without using a load of wash. The only problem with this is you will need to use either an airbrush or a spray can of a brown sort of base colour paint. You can do it with a brush, it just takes a bit longer, which defeats half the point of this method. This is the only thing. Other than that, the whole of the kill team set for which of the Sector Imperialis took me about 3 hours plus a little bit of time for drying. So it's a really quick, really easy way to get a really nice effect. So let's have a look.
But just before we start, I want to say a few words about Goblin Gaming, because they've got a load of Warhammer stuff, up to like 20% off. It's free next day delivery over £75. Within the UK, so if you're looking to pick up some new supplies, I do have an affiliate link down in the description below. If you use that, I'll get a little bit as well to help me keep going. So here we have a couple of pieces of the Sector Imperialis terrain. I've undercoated it white with just a GW Corax white spray paint, and the first colour I'm going to put on is a Mahogony Brown by Vallejo Air Colours. You can use a couple of colours. Army Painter Leather Brown is a pretty similar colour. I believe Mournfang Brown for GW is a fairly similar kind of colour. The idea is just kind of get a reddish brown undertone to go on it. It doesn't really matter too much. You can make it a more neutral colour, you can make it a warmer colour, a more yellowy colour. Just needs to be kind of dark and a bit richer so that it gives you some of those nice shadows. Most of it's getting painted over anyway, so you know, this is just for the shadows to save on you having to splash a load of wash around and you know, wait for that to dry and end up picking it up, pooling and dripping it all over your desk and your carpet and your jeans. And I mean, that might just be me, but you know, it's a pain in the backside to wash whole sections of terrain. This is much quicker, much easier. So just get a nice, good coat of something dark and ruddy coloured, so that it acts as a nice base to work up from when you start doing the dry brushing. So we'll just speed that up. I go through this and then I do another coat just to kind of cover any gaps I missed the first time where my fingers were, or you know, just didn't see. Now here we're putting on a dry brush layer of XV88 by Games Workshop. I mean, it's not really a dry brush layer. It's kind of more of a wet brush. I put quite a bit on the bristles of the brush. I'm using like quite a big, chunky, old brush. You know, it needs to be quite stiff bristles. Needs to be quite big. You know, you're doing terrain, and get quite a bit on the brush. Pull it across the palette. Don't take off as much as you would with your dry brushing. As you can see, I'm kind of getting paint on most of the raised surfaces, just leaving some of the crevices. You know, this is quite a nice orangey, brownish kind of colour to go over the nice kind of clay red of what's underneath. And you'll notice that I'm going to be doing it more strongly on the raised areas. So the lower areas that are close to the ground are going to be darker, and that's going to give a nice fade up to the top of the piece. It's just nice and simple to do, and as you can see, this is super quick getting this done. So we'll just speed that up and come back in a sec for the next coat. Now for this next layer, I've got some Ushabti Bone, and I'm not putting that on straight away. I'm mixing it a little bit with the XV88 that's still on my palette, because it's quite a big jump to go straight to it, and it's better just to do a kind of blend layer in between. So this is another dry brush layer, big brush again, stiff bristles, and I'm putting on less paint than the previous layer, but I'm still putting on quite a bit, because I still need to get quite a lot of this quite bright, and so I don't just want to have the very end bits to be bright. I need it to be quite bright from the lower levels as well, from the lower levels of paint. So I'm still going quite heavy-handed with this mix of Ushabti Bone and XV88. Again, it's more concentrated on the higher parts of the model, you know, on the top of the windows, top of the pillars, things like that, because that's where light is going to be hitting it mostly from up above, you know, from the sky, from street lighting and, you know, explosions, things like that. And also you get dirt and things kicked up at the ground level. So we'll speed this up and come back in a second. So now I'm doing, going back over it, and I've got a sort of heavier Ushabti Bone mix to the XV88. There's not much XV88 left in that now, and as you can see, it's getting a lot closer to white. You're getting like a lot higher highlights. Still keeping mind to do the higher parts of the model up on top where the light's going to be hitting it. Don't worry about doing those metal pieces, you know, the air vents, things like that. Catch them a bit, but they're going to be painted slightly metally quite afterwards, so no need to worry about them. So we're just going through and just kind of gradually adding more and more Ushabti Bone each time I go over it. Yeah, it's really quick. You don't need to worry about being particularly neat. You know, you get a big brush, you just go with the shapes of the forms of the piece, you know, catch the brush over it, keep going back and forth. Less is better, you know, get paint off your brush, try a little bit, get a bit more on until it starts kind of working and you feel comfortable with it. So after working up to pretty much pure Ushabti Bone for the previous layers, I've now got white scar, and I'm just going to do a really, really light dry brush over all the top of the pieces, just to really catch those very sort of specular highlights at the very tops edges of things. Really, this one needs to be just so subtle. You don't want to go overboard and make it look like it's been snowing, you know? You just want nice kind of bright highlights. So then once all those dry brush layers are dry, you can go in and we can start working on the metal pieces that are on the wall, the fans and the whatever power conduits and things like that. And for this, I'm just going to be using Nuln Oil. The thing is, washes go on really easily. They're really, really fast for this kind of thing. Using paint, because you're actually painting pigment on instead of kind of staining the color underneath, the coverage is more difficult and it's more obvious when you don't get it right. Whereas because we've already got some colors, we've already got some highlights going on with this, we can get away with just using a wash just to darken up and stain what we already have there. So we're just going over all the metal bits on the walls and then all the bits that are broken away that are exposing the sort of metal sheets underneath. Obviously, you can go for the window frames. You know, you can do as much or as little as you want on this. If you really want, you could stop right there. You know, as you can see, it's looking all right. The color is enough to add a nice bit of color to your board. But you know, we can go on. Yeah, that didn't take long enough to worry about spending too much time. So we'll just get all this Nuln Oil done and come back in a second. So that was probably the longest part of that, just staining all that up and then waiting for it to dry. So now we've got Leadbelcher, and I'm just going in with a smaller dry brush and just catching all these with a sort of medium light dry brush. It's just to kind of catch it, make it look like it's sort of old rusty material. This is a little bit like my Sector Mechanicus tutorial that I've done. Put a link up there. And, you're kind of making this rusty look with just really easy, simple colours. So that's it. You're just dry brushing over the kind of already stained rusty look things just to make it look a bit metal as well. So just one last step is the floor pieces for the upper levels. For this I actually used just a black acrylic paint. I didn't want to dip too much into my expensive model paints to do big surfaces. So this is just a black acrylic paint, really watered down, just a couple of coats. Watered down, you can just kind of splash it across it. It covers a bit like a wash. So yeah, just a couple of coats of that just to get the colour strong enough. Doesn't matter if you got a little bit of tone through from underneath, it's a ruined building, it's not that much of an issue. So once the black is dried, you'll see, yeah, it's a little bit patchy there, but it doesn't matter. So we'll go in with a quite heavy dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Grey. So with this, just kind of, when you're doing the dry brush, make sure you kind of try and come in from the edges into the center of that area, that black painted area. Because if you go towards the edges, you'll end up hitting the grey over the already coloured browny yellowy bits. And obviously that's not ideal because it'd look a bit weirdly messy. So if you make sure you bring your brush in from the edge, and then when you're on the inside, just kind of get some heavy paint strokes across, get it all kind of textured looking. And so the final step is a light dry brush of Administratum Grey. You're just catching the very extreme edges of the broken concrete just to get it quite nice and bright. You can go a bit brighter if you want on a final one with a bit of Ulthman Grey mixed in. You can go some other colours as well. You can go the Fenrisian Grey, Thunderhawk Blue, kind of bluey black colours, which would be quite nice. You can do the sort of browny Skaven, Skaven Blight Fur colour, those kind of things, as you like. But it's just easy. Just remember to pull in from the edges into the middle, get a bit of texture going on, and have fun. So there we go, that's my quick and easy way to get the Sector Imperialis terrain painted up in just a couple of hours. Hope this helped some of you, and I shall be doing some more videos in the future. I know I'm a bit slow at putting them out, but I will get there and I will make them as useful as possible. But as usual, let me know in the comments if you've got any suggestions or any requests for videos, and I shall see what I can do in the future. Thanks very much for watching, and if you're a subscriber, thanks very much. If not, I'd love it if you press that button. I'll catch you soon. Bye bye.